Kenya attack was off our radar until beloved Paris was hit. In the hours after the deadly terror attack in Paris, France, Facebook and Twitter were filled with signs of support for France. People posted old photos of themselves in front of the Eiffel Tower. Others said they were praying for Paris. Profile picture after profile picture was overlaid with the red, white, and blue of the French flag. Then, suddenly a story about another terror attack popped up. This time the attack was in Kenya. That's in Africa. "Man, what's happening with the world right now?" one Facebook user wrote. 147 dead in terrorist attack on Kenya College, actress Bex Taylor Klaus tweeted. Hate consumes and destroys. Older tragedy plays out as new attack. One British Broadcasting Corporation article on the attack was linked to over and over again. The date on the story? April 3rd, 2015. It is impossible to tell how this article started making the rounds of the internet 7 months after it was published. The story within is as horrifying as the ghastly events in Paris. 148 people were killed by al-Shabaab militants who stormed the dormitories of Garissa University College in a siege that lasted 15 hours. For those who skimmed past the date, it seemed like another unfolding story of horror and death. It was posted so many times that Kenya began to trend on popularity tracking websites like Alexa.com. Why didn't we tweet about Kenya? The eventual awareness that the story was published in April triggered a more somber realization. There had been no grand social media response to the earlier attack. Remember, the Paris attack happened just a few weeks ago. The one in Kenya happened 6 months ago. In fact, this old article was clearly the first time many people were hearing about it. Comparing levels of outrage in response to tragic news is nothing new. It is happening right now in reference to the bloody attack in Beirut, Lebanon, that happened the day before the attack in Paris. The same extremist group, Islamic State, or ISIS, was responsible for both attacks, though few people noticed the Beirut attack. Islamic State is trying to set up its own country governed by Islamic law, and has already captured parts of Syria and Iraq. The Black Lives Matter movement has brought attention to the media's uneven and unequal coverage, which gives more attention to some deaths than it does to others. The same has been said for years in reference to missing persons cases. Cases involving missing young white women always seem to receive the most attention, media critics say. How do we explain what goes viral? What gets covered and why is an issue complicated enough to take up an entire college courses. But here is what seems clear. People are more likely to care about tragedies that hit people in places to which they feel close. They are also more likely to show their concern if everyone else is doing the same. Just think about what happens when a Facebook friend passes away, said Boston College's Kelly Rosetto, who studies the way grief is expressed on social media. Mourners write on the person's wall and change their profile pictures to old photos of them together. They fill their statuses with RIP, that means rest in peace, and praying for you. The more posts we see, the more pressure there is to post our own. Watching the waves of everyone else grieving can make you feel guilty, Rosetto said. If you're not changing your profile picture, if you're not posting a message, you start to question your own grief response. Americans and their affection for Paris. Many Americans have personal connections to Paris. They may have vacationed there or know people who live there. Thus, they are more affected when Paris is hit by tragedy, just as they would be when a friend dies. Even those who have never set foot in France have traveled there through books, TV shows, and movies. After the attacks on Paris, a chain of events unfolded on social media that resembled what happens when a friend dies. Profile pictures changed to those Eiffel Tower selfies. Statuses were posted and a Peace for Paris symbol went viral. Others saw those pictures and statuses, then were asked by Facebook to change your profile picture to support France and the people of Paris. Soon, a widespread and heartfelt response to a horrible event became visible for all to see. Many fewer Americans have traveled to Kenya or Beirut than to Paris. However, just because we do not have vacation photos taken in those places, we do not get to ignore the horrible killings they have endured. Deep down, everyone knows that. So what can a person do in an instant to show they care? Share a link, even if it is 7 months old. Question 1. Which section's main purpose is to provide details about the attack in Kenya? You should circle the most important word in this question. Now let's look at the possible answers. Remember, if it's definitely wrong, you cross it out. If it might be right, you put a question mark. After we look at all 4 of the possible answers, you look at the question marks and decide which is the most best appropriate answer. Introduction, paragraphs 1 through 4. Take a minute to go back and scan this and see if that talks about the attack in Kenya. B. Older tragedy plays out as new attack. Look back at that chunk, scan it, and see if it's about Kenya. C. How do we explain what goes viral? Reread that chunk, see if it is about Kenya. Why didn't we tweet about Kenya? Reread that chunk, see if it's about Kenya. Now pick your answer. Question 2. Which of the following statements most accurately represents the author's opinion in the article? Remember, the purpose of today's mini-assessment is to be able to determine an author's position on a topic, in a way, the author's claim. Circle the most important words or words in the question first. Now let's decide which answers to delete and which to put question marks next to. A. Paris is the most beloved of all cities. If you think that that is the author's opinion, put a question mark next to it. Otherwise, cross it out. B. The events in Paris and Beirut were very similar. If you think that's the author's opinion, put a question mark. Otherwise, cross it out. C. Everyone should care when terrible things happen anywhere. If you think that's the author's opinion, put a question mark. D. People believe the things they are familiar with are most important. If you think that's the author's opinion, put a question mark. If you had a question mark in more than one of the possible answers for number 2, remember, pick the one that most accurately represents the author's opinion. Question 3. Based on this article, which statement about the author is most likely accurate? Go ahead and circle the most important words in question 3. Now let's look at the answers. A. People are more likely to care about tragedies that hit people and places to which they feel close. People care a lot about tragedies that occur far from home. People tend to care more about tragedies that occur to strangers. D. People are less likely to care about what happens to their neighbors. Remember, you want the most accurate answer about the author. Question 4. Which of the following are opposing this author's point of view? Circle the important words in the question first. A. Someone would be more affected, should be affected, so there should be an ed after the word affect, by a tragedy someplace they have actually visited. B. Most people don't care about what happened in Paris. C. Most people do care about what happened in Kenya. D. Someone would be more affected by a tragedy if they have not visited the country or place the tragedy struck. Remember, you're choosing the answer that is basically the counterclaim to the author's opinion, the opposite of what she believes. Choose your answer for number 4. Question 5. Which sentence most accurately summarizes the author's point of view on social media and what goes viral? Circle the important words in the question. Now let's look at the possible answers. A. People are more likely to care about tragedies that hit people and places to which they feel close. If you think that this answer has something to do with what the author thinks about social media and what goes viral, put a question mark. B. What gets covered and why is an issue complicated enough to take up entire college courses. If you think this is the author's point of view on social media and what goes viral, put a question mark. C. The more posts we see, the more pressure there is to post our own. If you think C most accurately reflects the author's point of view on social media and what goes viral, put a question mark. D. None of the above. If you think it is D most accurately summarizes the author's point of view, put a question mark. Anywhere you didn't put a question mark, you should of course cross out. Now, of the question marks that you have for number 5, remember, choose the one that most accurately summarizes her point of view on social media and what goes viral.